This is Book 2, Chapter 7 of A CheesePress History. As usual, we start with vocabulary. There are some words here that you may not have encountered before. Don't forget to review the speculation questions before you start the chapter. So, let's get into it. Okay, y'all, we're really settling in now. I don't just mean standing in one place for more than 5 seconds. I'm talking about cultural development. We're about to start getting specific. 8000 BCE. Wood was definitely being used to build things before 8000 BCE. Lumber is used as a resource to build and create decorative items in every inhabited space in the world. However, fully wooden structures were becoming more common around this time. There are at least 2 discoveries. One, an inhabitable structure in Scarborough, North Yorkshire, which has been dated to about 8500 BCE, and the other is a well in the Czech Republic, likely constructed from oak trees felled around 5255 BCE, demonstrating the use of lumber in construction around this era. These discoveries were considered the oldest surviving examples of lumber use until September 2023, when new research was published about a wooden structure near a waterfall in Zambia, which was dated to 476,000 years ago. Yet another example of how nothing that we think we know can really be trusted. One of the oldest intentional grave sites we know is in the Khazar Cave, Israel. It dates back to around 8000 BCE. This gravesite hints at a number of burial rites, such as the ochre residue found on the bodies, suggesting they were painted ceremonially before they were placed in their coffins. Note, they were using coffins. The bodies were also found with a good deal of burial goods, including clothing, food, and other trinkets. There also seem to be indications of feasting in this area as a celebration of the dead. This shows a level of purpose and calculation not seen at other sites. 7500 BCE. Going back to people being able to stay still for a second, cave paintings on the Muna Island depicting kites were dated back to 7500 BCE. So obviously they found time to have a purpose for and invent an early predecessor of kites. In Brazil, people were beginning to use the slash and burn farming method. This is likely one of the earliest methods of farming. The slash and burn method requires the use of fire to clear forests for planting. The ash-infused soil on the cleared land is nutrient-rich and helps fertilize the incoming crops. After a couple of years, the plot of land would be sucked dry of nutrients and abandoned to revert back into bush and forested land before it could be used again. 7000 BCE. In the Middle East, drop spindles were invented in the 7th millennium BCE. Drop spindles, like their predecessors, were used to make yarn. We are still unsure of the exact spinning method done before this invention. To use a drop spindle, fibers are hooked around the top of the device. It is then dropped and made to twirl in the air. The spinning motion, aided by the weighted component at the top or bottom of the device, twists the fibers together, which literally spins the threads into yarn. 7000 to 5000 BCE. Excitingly, the first founding myth of Athens, Greece is set around 7000 BCE, around the time of the earliest settlements in this area, which means creation story time. The city of Athens itself is said to have existed long before it got its proper name. In fact, it was called Cecropia after Cecrops, a half-serpent man who was known for being the first king of Attica, the region Athens is located in. He was said to have built the city and was responsible for many of its advancements. Athens was, in fact, a flourishing hub of trade and overall very prosperous, which attracted the attention of the gods. The gods were not worshipped in Cecropia, and they became very jealous of the city. They decided that the city must be renamed to honor one of them, and then that god would become the patron of the city, just like the other city-states of ancient Greece. The gods argued amongst themselves for a bit, typical behavior for them, until the two of them stood out as the main contenders. Athena, since the city was the home to many advancements and inventions, and Poseidon, since it was the largest port city on the Aegean Sea. As a tiebreaker, Zeus decided both would have to offer gifts to the citizens of the city, where King Cecrops would act as the arbiter of the dispute, which is only fair since they're renaming his city. Poseidon went first. He took his trident and struck a rock, causing a spring to gush forth, and promised them that no drought would ever plague their city. At first, the citizens were overjoyed, but then Cecrops tasted the water and found it was drinkable, but tasted salty like the sea, and the people were very disappointed. Athena stepped up next. She gifted the people with seeds that grew into olive trees. The people were content with this, as the trees would provide food, wood, and oil. Cecrops pronounced Athena the winner of the contest. The city was renamed Athens in honor of her, and she was made the patron of the city. Anyway, this is the founding story of Athens, as in, when people ask about or research the founding of Athens, this is the story they get. Whether people believe it or not doesn't really matter when it's generally treated as fact. This is true for most creation stories. We can get approximate dates, events surrounding around the same time, and we can even get specific dates sometimes, but they're all attached to the stories themselves. 7000 to 1500 BCE. The Chinchorro culture was a pre-ceramic culture that lasted between 7000 to 1500 BCE. They seem to be a sedentary fishing people along the edge of the Pacific coastal region that is now known as northern Chile and southern Peru. This culture is well known for their mummification practices that adapted and evolved over the years. 7000 to 6000 BCE. Proto-writing was beginning to emerge in the 7th millennium in China, as well as other glyphs that were being developed in other places around the world. Which brings us to an important development milestone for mankind. Congratulations, everyone. We're at the point in this history book where we've made our way out of prehistory. That's right, the advent of written language. We are now officially at the point in our timeline that is considered history.